Let's start with a really big question, one that sits right at the heart of Marcus Garvey's entire philosophy.
How do a scattered people unite to face a common challenge? Well, Garvey didn't just pose the question. He laid out a structured step-by-step answer. It's a developmental roadmap designed specifically for what he called Africans at home and abroad, guiding a path from a state of being dispersed to one of organized, effective life.
So here's how we're going to walk through this blueprint. It's built around 3 core movements. First, the power of the mind, then defining purpose, and finally, disciplined perseverance. And within those, we'll look at 8 very specific stages.
These 3 movements are the real backbone of the whole thing. And this is so important to grasp. The 8 stages that fall within them have to be followed in order. Each one literally builds the foundation for the next. If you skip a step, it's not just about slowing down, it actually creates confusion. So, let's get into it, starting with that essential first movement.
This first phase is all about the internal work. It's about achieving what Garvey called mental emancipation. He saw this as the absolute, non-negotiable first step before any meaningful action could ever happen in the outside world.
The journey starts with awakening. As Garvey famously said, we are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free the mind. Now, this isn't about just swapping one ideology for another. It's about the discipline of pausing and really examining the assumptions you've inherited. It's the simple, powerful act of asking why before just accepting things as they are. Garvey knew that no group could build anything strong if the people inside it hadn't first cleared their own vision.
After that awakening comes confrontation. Garvey's instruction here was simple but so deep. Man, know thyself. This stage is about taking a hard, honest look at reality, at conditions as they truly are, not how they've been described by others. It means looking unflinchingly at the truth, asking whose stories have been told, and just as importantly, whose have been erased and why. This honest assessment is the only ground you can build something on that will actually last.
Okay, so once reality is confronted, you need a new way of thinking to stand on. As Garvey advised, you must always use or apply your own reasoning to what you have read. This is reorientation. It's the active construction of an independent framework for thinking. Garvey was adamant that a people who think using borrowed ideas will always end up serving borrowed interests. So this stage is all about building your own intellectual architecture.
So the takeaway from this first movement is pretty clear. This internal work has to come first. For example, think about a simple everyday decision, like where to buy groceries. After questioning the assumption that convenience is the only thing that matters, a person might reorient their thinking. They might decide to consciously support a Black-owned store, seeing that small act as part of a larger strategy for building community wealth. Clear sight always comes before effective action.
All right, let's move on to the second movement. You'll see how this builds directly on the first. Once the mind is clear, an individual can start to connect their own personal clarity to a much larger historical mission. This is where individual thought finds its collective aim.
The first step here is what Garvey called continuity. He taught that history is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. This is all about seeing oneself as part of a living tradition, a long line of effort that stretches back through generations. It's this powerful recognition that the work is an inheritance, that nobody is starting from scratch. It's about looking at history and understanding what it's asking of this present moment.
And that sense of history leads directly to purpose. This is captured perfectly in Garvey's motto: one God, one aim, one destiny. That one aim was never just about personal ambition. It was about aligning one's own personal skills with the needs of the collective. Purpose answers that fundamental question every community asks its people. What problem are you here to help solve? What are you going to give back?
You see how this movement works? It takes that individual clarity and channels it into something much bigger. Think about a student who might be unsure about what career to pursue. By recognizing a real need for more doctors or nurses in their community, that personal uncertainty gets replaced by a sense of responsibility. Suddenly, studying medicine isn't just a job choice, it becomes a clear and urgent purpose.
So, we've gone from a clear mind to a shared purpose. This final movement, disciplined perseverance, is all about how that purpose gets translated into real, tangible, lasting results. This is where intention becomes action.
The sixth stage is discipline, and it's grounded in that spirit of never give up until you conquer. Purpose without practice is just talk. Discipline is the engine that turns intention into daily conduct.
It's the bridge between what someone says they value and what they actually do. It's about the daily habits that prove a commitment is real.
But individual discipline can only go so far, and that's why the seventh stage is organization. Garvey believed that the ends you serve that are for all in common will take you into eternity. He was an institutional genius. He understood that a people without their own institutions are a people without a secure future. Organization means building the structures, the schools, the businesses, the cooperatives that can carry that disciplined effort forward across generations, making the work permanent.
And that brings us to the final stage, individual genius, which really brings everything full circle. Garvey stated, God and nature first made us what we are. Then, out of our own created genius, we make ourselves what we want to be. After going through all those previous stages, the individual now applies their own unique genius, their special gifts, back in service to the collective. A person's talents aren't seen as just personal property, but as an obligation to the community that needs them.
So the big takeaway here is seeing how personal habits can scale up to become something much bigger. Imagine a few families starting a regular savings club. That's a disciplined habit. Over time, that simple habit can grow and formalize into a credit union or a cooperative, a lasting institution that serves the whole community. That's how disciplined perseverance creates a real, tangible future.
But here's what's so powerful about this blueprint. That eighth stage isn't really the end of the line. When you look at the logic of it, you realize the sequence is actually a circle. The end of the journey is really just a new beginning. Think about it. That student who becomes a doctor and serves their community. Well, in doing that work, they discover new problems, new things to understand, new truths to confront. The act of contributing their genius actually restarts the whole journey of awakening, but this time with deeper insight. The work never really finishes, it just deepens, creating this continuous cycle of growth for both the individual and the community.
And this entire sequence, from mental freedom all the way to organized, collective life, is designed to produce exactly that, confidence. A people prepared this way, who are clear in their minds and united in their purpose, can approach any challenge from a position of incredible strength. As Garvey himself said it best, with confidence, you have won before you have started.